welcome to Symphony Storytime, where we share two of our favorite things, music and books. My name is Marilyn. I'm a cellist with the Oregon Symphony, but today I am your reader, and I'm here with a very special friend, also from the Oregon Symphony.
Hi everyone, my name is Mariya Andonova, and I play the double bass, and it sounds like this.
Yes, that is the perfect sound for our book today. Our book today is Abdul's Story by Jamila Tompkins Bigelow. And I love this story because it talks about a young boy who's having some difficulty getting his stories on the page and even seeing his stories in the books that he reads. But he overcomes that. So let's get started. This is Abdul's Story by Jamila Tompkins Bigelow, illustrated by Tiffany Rhodes. Read with permission by Simon and Schuster. Abdul loved to tell stories. He told one about the high-stepping kids who collected donations in boots, another one about the teenagers who danced in subway cars. He had one about the bow-tie-wearing man hawking bean pies on Broad Street, and even one about the woman who sold water ice from her basement on hot summer days. Writing these stories was hard, though. Making lowercase b face the right way was tricky. P and S, too. Silent letters were downright sneaky. How could Abdul know there was an E if it never made a sound? Abdul loved straight lines, like the ones his barber shaved. But Abdul's scribbly, scratchy, scrawly letters never stayed on any line. During writing period each day, he wrote, then erased his mistakes. Wrote, then erased. Wrote, then erased. His classmates had neat sentences. Abdul had smudges. Why write his stories anyway? The people and places in his school books never looked or sounded like the people or places he knew. Some stories are for books, Abdul decided, but not his. One day, Abdul's class had a visitor. Mr. Muhammad had lines straighter than straight around his beard and hairline. His sneakers, like Abdul's, had not a single crease or scuff. Mr. Muhammad was a writer. He read a story about a watchful boy with hair shaved low and skin the color of night. Women braided hair on front steps in his story. Girls with clacking beads jumped rope, and men in white thobes prayed on the sidewalk outside a full storefront mosque. The boy watched over this community. Write new stories with new superheroes, Mr. Muhammad said. Abdul pressed his paper down firmly. He could be an author like Mr. Muhammad. But B played tricks again. Mr. Muhammad walked around, reading each child's work. He was getting close. Does silent E go there? Silent U? Oh, erase. 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 Abdul tried writing neatly. Write, erase. Write, erase. Erase. Rip! He slammed down his pencil. Jada and Kwame had pages of words. Abdul had a hole. Abdul slid down, down, down under the table. He imagined an eraser big enough to erase himself. Nice sneaks. Can I see your story? Mr. Muhammad asked. I don't got a story, Abdul whispered. Everyone has stories, but I can't write like them. Abdul pointed. Me neither, Mr. Muhammad said. Come with me. I want to show you my notebook. That's a mess! I get messy words out so good words can come too. I fix the mess later. Before walking away, he said, keep trying. That gave Abdul an idea. Bismillah, he said. Snap! Abdul scribbled words and made mistakes without erasing. He wrote around the hole, filling the page. I wrote a mess like yours, Abdul told Mr. Muhammad. Mr. Muhammad smiled. Find a great story in there. Abdul squinted. He saw words, misspelled, but wondrous and sloppy-looking sentences he loved. Over the next few days, Abdul rewrote a less messy mess. Then an even less messy mess. He smiled when he read his story to himself. But when it was time to hand it in, he did not feel like smiling. That's sloppy, Jada said. You spelled a word wrong, Kwame added. Abdul slipped his paper underneath the others. Some kids are writers, Abdul thought, but not me. Days later, Mr. Muhammad returned. I loved your stories, he exclaimed. I had to read one again and again. It was so good. Everyone sat up. Everyone except Abdul. Kwame whispered, I bet it was mine. I spelled every word right. Jada whispered back, he probably liked mine. I have the best handwriting in class. Mr. Muhammad started reading the story in a loud, clear voice. It was about a boy with tall hair, shaped with sharp lines, and skin the orange-brown of sunrise. He watched over the kids stomp, stepping down the block, and the ones breaking to the beat of a city train. He even protected the grown-ups who sold things and were like family. Abdul sat up. It was his story. And then Mr. Muhammad paused. He frowned at the page. Abdul's cheeks burned. Everyone listened wide-eyed and silent. Mr. Muhammad read on, stopping a few more times at mistakes until he reached the end of the story. That was by Abdul, Mr. Muhammad said. Abdul slowly looked up. Everyone stared. Were they smiling? Yes, and clapping too. Great story, Kwame told Abdul. I loved it, said Jada. When they returned to their writing, Abdul whispered to Mr. Muhammad, what about my mistakes? Writers make mistakes. We'll work on them. As they worked, Abdul thought, some people are writers, and I am one of them. Yay! I love that book, and I really loved reading it with your beautiful bass melodies playing along. I especially like how you chose some really heroic themes to play when Abdul was overcoming his difficulties. Can you tell us about that?
So I chose selections from a very heroic piece called A Hero's Life. It's written by Richard Strauss, and in the piece, through his music, depicts how he faces self-doubt, criticism, but somehow manages to be heroic at the end. And I thought, what a better fitting story to what we read today.
It was really perfect. I had goosebumps. Thanks so much, Mariya, for joining me for this story. It's time for me to say goodbye now, but Mariya is actually going to tell you a little bit more about her life with the double bass and send you off with some music.
Hello, everyone. This is my instrument. It's called the double bass. I have been playing it since I was 13 years old, and if you're interested in playing the bass, ask your parents or a teacher how you might be able to find the right size for you. Double basses come in all shapes and forms and sizes, and it's really great fun to play. There are all kinds of different sounds that I can make on it. I can pluck it. A little more jazzy, or I can use this thing called a bow. It has horsehair attached to a wooden stick, and it makes fun noises like this. The double bass is the lowest sounding instrument of the string family, and I can make a sound that is as low as this. Pretty low, right? And as high as... It's really great fun, and now I'm going to play a piece for you by an Italian composer, Giovanni Bottesini, and you're about to hear his Concerto No. 2 for double bass.